Have you ever tried to smile with your heart in pieces? Have you ever laid down at night and, even surrounded by silence, felt the noise of pain screaming inside you? There is a type of suffering that doesn't show up in exams, that no one sees, but that is eating away at you from the inside. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. Jesus speaks to you, and he brought you here for a reason. Because there's a part of you that's still trying to breathe beneath the rubble of a lost love, a broken promise, a dream that died too soon. Maybe you are holding the pieces of a heart that you can no longer trust, waiting for an answer, a relief, a sign. And what no one told you is that there is a hidden truth about this pain. A truth that can begin to restore everything today. You are not here by chance. Most people never realize this, but today you will. There is a type of healing that does not begin in the absence of pain, but in the presence of Jesus, in the midst of it. And this cure has a name. It has direction. It has purpose. What you will hear now is not just a message, it's a revelation. A living word that can break invisible chains and ignite new hope within you. Because there is something that Jesus wants to whisper to your heart, something that the world was unable to offer, but that heaven prepared just for you. If you are here, it is because he chose you to listen to this now, and what comes next could change everything. Take a deep breath, allow yourself to feel. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Jesus sitting next to you, looking into your eyes and saying, "I see your pain, I know your wounds. But I am here, and I will restore you." This isn't just another word. It's a reunion with the love that never failed, even when everything failed you. It's time to find out what really happens when a broken heart is placed in the hands of the one who created it. And if this message is already touching your heart, click the like button so that others can also be blessed. Your gesture could be the touch of hope that someone is waiting for right now. Take a deep breath and open your heart to this message. This isn't just another YouTube video. This is an encounter between your heart and the voice of Jesus. Maybe you felt a tightness in your chest, a silent emptiness that no one around you notices. Maybe you smiled at others while inside you were begging for healing. What if I told you that this pain you feel now could be the beginning of something sacred? You're not here by chance. Jesus speaks to you, and he brought you exactly here at this exact moment because there is something you need to hear. A revelation, a truth that has the power to completely transform the way you deal with the emotional wounds you carry. Before continuing, write in the comments, "I trust in Jesus." This statement of faith may seem simple, but it has the power to move heaven and touch hearts that are also hurting right now. Your comment could be the encouragement someone needs today. And if this message is touching your heart, click the like button so that others can also be blessed. When you like this video, you are helping this word reach someone who may be on the verge of giving up. Your gesture can be an act of evangelization, an act of faith. And if you're not already part of this channel, sign up now. Together, we form a community that chooses to hear the voice of Jesus in the midst of chaos, and you are part of it. Get ready, because Jesus warned something very important about this situation, and you need to hear it before leaving this video, something that almost no one notices. But that can change everything. Let's find out together what happens when a broken heart finds the voice from heaven. And that journey starts now. Imagine the silence of a dark room where everything around is in order, except the heart of whoever is inside. You look at the walls, at the ceiling, but what's really crumbling is what's inside you. There is no scream, but there is pain. There is no blood, but there are open wounds that no one sees. There are pains that make no noise but echo louder than any storm, and it is in this hidden place of the soul, where tears do not fall from the eyes but overflow inside, that Jesus wants to meet you today. Because Jesus speaks to you, and he knows this tiredness disguised as strength. He sees this crumbling faith hidden behind a "it will pass" that you repeat to yourself every day. Have you ever felt this way? as if it were whole on the outside, but in pieces on the inside. David too. David, the anointed king, the man after God's own heart, also experienced the unbearable weight of a broken heart. He had sinned. He knew that, and when the price of his mistake came in the form of a loss, he fell. His son, the result of a moment of error and pain, died. David fasted, prayed, cried. And still death came. This is where many break down. It is at this point that the faith of many becomes a shadow of what it once was. And maybe you're at that same point right now, trying to understand why you prayed so hard, fought so hard, believed so much, and still lost. Lost someone, lost a love, you lost a part of you. But there is something in this story that almost no one realizes. God did not abandon David. Even in the midst of pain, even after the mistake, the Lord was still there. Because as it is written in Psalm 34:18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. It is not when everything is fine that God approaches. It's when you no longer have the strength to appear strong. David got up. He washed his face. He came back to live. This wasn't a sign of coldness. It was faith. A faith that is born not from the absence of suffering, but from the presence of Jesus in the midst of chaos. And maybe that's the answer your heart is asking for right now. No, you don't have to pretend everything is fine. Needless to say, it doesn't hurt. But you need to remember, Jesus is closer now than ever, because it is in brokenness that he begins reconstruction. When the world looks and sees only ruins, he already sees the foundation of the new history, a story where every tear shed becomes a seed of restoration. But what if I told you that what you were taught about overcoming is incomplete, that it's not time that heals all wounds? It's who walks with you during that time. Jesus speaks to you, and he is not promising you a life without scars, but rather a love so deep that even your marks will be a sign of victory. When David sinned, suffered, and cried, God did not turn away. He approached. The sky didn't close, it tilted. Because pain does not keep Jesus away from you, it attracts. When everything around you falls apart, he is the hand that remains outstretched. When the world no longer knows what to say, he still whispers, I am here. Perhaps today you are experiencing this moment of silence and confusion. Maybe the pain has made you question your faith, your identity, your worth. Perhaps you have wondered if you are still worthy of God's love. The answer is yes, because David's restoration did not begin when everything got better. It began when he chose to believe even with his heart in pieces, and that same choice is before you now. It doesn't matter what broke you. What matters is who will restore you. And Jesus has already extended his hand. The question is, will you hold on? If this word is touching your heart, write in the comments, I trust in Jesus. This statement isn't just yours. It's a bridge between your heart and heaven. Your comment could be the encouragement someone needs today. It could be the answer that another soul is silently waiting for so as not to give up. And if you feel like this message is bringing light into your pain, click the like button so others can be blessed too. Each like makes this word reach other broken hearts, other lives that are on the edge and perhaps need exactly that. A voice that says that Jesus is still around. Take a deep breath. Allow yourself to feel this message. Imagine Jesus entering your pain now. Not to judge you, but to hold you, to lift you up, to start something new. Because even if no one else understands, he understands. Even if you think it's all over, he whispers, this is where it begins. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. There is a thirst in the human heart that no earthly love has been able to quench. And there is a story, forgotten by many, that reveals how Jesus can fill that void you feel now. Get ready, because the answer you're looking for is closer than you think. And what happens next? It will change the way you see everything. She was alone, in a place where no one else wanted to be, in the heat of the day, on the edge of a well that had become more familiar than any friendly face. Not by choice, but by rejection. The Samaritan woman carried within her the weight of years of trying to fill a void that only grew. Relationship after relationship, promise after disappointment, 5 husbands, and still alone. It wasn't just the judgment of others that hurt her. It was the judgment she made of herself every time she looked in the mirror. Will I ever truly be loved? Maybe this is the question that echoes inside your heart too. Maybe, like her, you've tried to find love in places that only left you emptier. And now, what's left are fragments of confidence, fragments of self-esteem, and a thirst that nothing seems to quench. But that day, something changed. Because in that place, where no one else wanted to be, Jesus decided to appear. He knew exactly who she was. He knew everything she had done, and yet he chose to find her there. Because Jesus speaks to you, and he doesn't find you in the palaces of perfection. He finds you in the deserts of rejection. He doesn't walk away from his story. He walks toward it. And when he looked at that woman, he didn't see the mistakes. He saw the pain, and he decided to cure her. John 4:14 reveals what he said. Whoever drinks the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. Jesus wasn't talking about just any water. He was talking about the kind of love that fills what no one else has been able to fill. The kind of presence that turns shame into purpose. This woman who previously fled the city returned to her as a messenger because something changed inside her. Something has been restored. And that something was not external approval. It was the encounter with Jesus. The thirst she had carried for years disappeared when she understood. It was not human love that was missing. It was the divine love that she did not yet know. And maybe this is your story too. Maybe you're looking for answers in hearts that can't even heal their own. Maybe you're trying to be enough for someone who never saw the whole of you. But today, Jesus speaks to you, and he says, I see your thirst. And I am the fountain that you are looking for. Have you ever wondered why it seems like no one is capable of loving you the way you hope? Have you ever thought that maybe the pain of not feeling enough isn't about who you are, but about what you haven't yet allowed God to restore in you? The Samaritan woman went to the well looking for water, but found a truth, a revelation. That the love she sought was not in the hands of another human being. It was in the eyes of Jesus. And that revelation is still alive today because Jesus speaks to you. And he wants you to know you were not created to be completed by another. You were created to be filled by him. The world will tell you that you need someone to feel whole. But Jesus comes and shows you that you are already complete in him. That your identity is not defined by who left you, but by who stayed with you when everyone else left. And he never left. It never will. He remains in the same place, next to the well of your story, waiting for the moment when you will stop running away and start listening. He's not pointing fingers. He is offering water. He is not demanding perfection from you. He is offering you love. If this word spoke to your heart, write in the comments, Jesus is my source. This statement may seem simple, but it carries power. It breaks cycles. It declares to the sky and to your pain that you choose to drink from the fountain that does not dry up. Your comment could be the answer someone who also feels rejected needs to read today. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Jesus waiting for you at the well of your own story, not with judgment, but with a look full of tenderness. He knows everything, and yet he loves you. He didn't come to condemn you, came to free you. And that's why what you're about to discover, it will change the way you see everything, because there is a powerful truth hidden at the heart of the rejections you have experienced. And it will be revealed in the next story. Get ready. There's a new layer of healing waiting for you. And what comes next? It could be exactly what you needed to trust love again. He just wanted to love. Joseph did not desire glory. He did not seek to betray anyone. He just carried within himself dreams planted by God. But the pain that reached him came from the hands that were supposed to protect him. The cruelest abandonment is the one that comes from where you least expect it. The betrayal that hurts the most is not that of an enemy, but of the person who bears your surname. Joseph was sold by his own brothers, sold like it was nothing. They threw him into a well. They denied its value. They pretended he was dead, and they went on with their lives. And maybe somewhere in your heart, this story also echoes, not literally, but emotionally. Perhaps you too have been thrown into a pit of silence, of rejection, of unspoken words and hurtful gestures. Maybe the person who hurt you was someone you trusted, someone you loved, and now inside you there was the feeling that something was broken forever. But what no one knew, not even Joseph, was that God was still writing. The silence of the well was not the end. It was the beginning of a path to redemption, because Jesus speaks to you. And when he speaks, even what was ill-intentioned becomes a seed of healing. Joseph spent years in Egypt. He was humiliated, forgotten, wrongful, but at the right time it was lifted. God didn't just restore. He placed Joseph in a position where his dreams would be fulfilled. And not only that, he used Joseph to feed the very family that had betrayed him. And this is where the twist happens. Genesis 50:20. The evil they intended against me, God turned for good. This is not just a verse, it's a promise. It's proof that what hurt you may be exactly what God will use to make you flourish. And perhaps the hardest part to understand is this. God didn't stop them from hurting you, but he never left the script of your story. He knew, and he was with you, in the well, in Potiphar's house, in prison, on the throne. He is, and what they did to you, what broke you, what gave you sleepless nights, what stole your trust, will not be the end point. God is still writing, and what he has for your life does not depend on what they did to you. It depends on his faithfulness, and he doesn't fail. Have you ever wondered why you still feel pain over things that happened so long ago? Have you ever tried to pretend that you got over it, but just remembering something makes your chest tighten? This is real. This is legit. And Jesus sees, he understands. He doesn't ask you to magically forget. He invites you to place this pain in his hands, because it is only there, in the hands that were nailed by love, that betrayal becomes a testimony. Only there does rejection gain a new name, redemption. Jesus speaks to you. And he's saying, I know what they did to you, but I also know what I can do with it. You don't have to continue carrying the weight of injustice. You don't need to hide for fear of being betrayed again. Jesus doesn't just restore your dignity. He gives you purpose. Hosea could have taken revenge. He could have rejected the brothers, but he embraced them. Because when God heals from within, even the memory of pain becomes a portal of healing for others. And maybe that's what he wants to do with you. Use your scars as bridges to reach others who have also been hurt. That doesn't erase what they did, but it changes everything about what comes next. If this word spoke to your heart, write in the comments, Jesus restores me. This simple sentence could be the beginning of a new chapter in your story. Your comment can heal someone who, like you, was also betrayed, was also forgotten, and also cried in silence. You have no idea how many lives your courage can touch. If this message touched your heart, click the like button so that others can also be blessed. Your gesture can make this word reach exactly those who are on the verge of giving up. And if you haven't signed up yet, sign up now. You're part of a community where Jesus speaks to you every day. Close your eyes now, take a deep breath. Imagine that moment in your life when you were hurt by the person you trusted most. Now imagine Jesus walking into that scene, standing between you and the pain, and saying, I saw it, I was there, and I'm not going to let that define you. Because when God's love enters, everything changes. Even pain gains purpose. Even abandonment becomes a bridge. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. There is a silent guilt that imprisons the hearts of those who loved wrongly, of those who made mistakes trying to get things right, of those who failed someone they loved deeply. And Jesus has something urgent to say about this. What comes next? It will completely change what you believe about forgiveness and restoration. He knew what he had done. I knew I had failed shamefully. Peter, the one who had promised faithfulness until death, denied Jesus 3 times in the darkest hour. And it wasn't just a stumble. It was before the eyes of the Master himself. When the rooster crowed, it wasn't just the sound of a bird at dawn. It was the sound of shame, of regret, of the crushing weight of guilt piercing one's chest. Peter wept bitterly. But he didn't cry just because he had denied Jesus. He cried because inside him, he believed he had destroyed something irreparable. Maybe you understand this pain. Maybe you also did something, said something, or stopped doing something, and now you live blaming yourself for a relationship that ended, for something that you can no longer fix. Perhaps, like Pedro, you failed precisely the one you loved most, and what remains is this emptiness accompanied by a persistent thought, if I could go back. But Jesus did not look at Peter as the world looks at those who make mistakes. He looked with love, with redemption. And this part of the story is often forgotten, but it is there that the secret of healing lies, because after the resurrection, Jesus sought out Peter. And in that intimate moment by the sea, he did not confront him with accusations. He called him in for a conversation that would restore his identity. "Peter, do you love me?" This question, repeated 3 times, was not to humiliate him. It was supposed to cure him. Each question was a wound, tenderly touched, each answer a layer of guilt being peeled away. John 21:17 gives us the final scene. "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus responds, "Feed my sheep." This means there is still purpose. There is still a mission. There is still a place in God's plan, even after your failure. Jesus speaks to you. And perhaps today he is asking the same thing. Do you love me? Not to shame you, but to remind you that your mistake is not greater than his love, that your past does not have the power to stop what he still wants to do through you. Pedro thought everything was over, but it was there, in the place of guilt, that Jesus planted the reset. And that is what he is wanting to do with you now. Maybe you need to forgive yourself. Maybe you need to believe that despite everything, Jesus still calls you by name, that his love didn't go away when you made a mistake. On the contrary, it was at that exact moment that he decided to get even closer. Have you ever felt that guilt is like a chain that holds you in the same place? Have you ever been afraid to look at God and think, can I still be loved? The answer is clear, yes. Jesus speaks to you. He loves you with a love that is not shaken by your mistakes. He does not expect perfection. He desires surrender. And today, he doesn't want you to just know it. He wants you to feel. He wants you to hand over that blame. May you return to him the weight that you have been carrying alone for so long. Because what hurts you isn't the mistake. It's continuing to believe that Jesus abandoned you because of him. And that is the lie that needs to be broken now. If this message touched your heart, comment, "Jesus forgives me and restores me." This isn't just a phrase, it's a delivery. It's your heart telling you it's ready to be healed. And this comment could be the hope someone needs to understand that there are still new beginnings in Jesus. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine Jesus looking you in the eyes just as he looked at Peter. Imagine him calling you by name with that same still voice saying, "You are still mine. There is still purpose in you." Now take a deep breath and feel the peace that comes when grace invades the space that guilt occupied. Because where the world sees an end, Jesus sees rebirth. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. There is a pain that blocks trust, a scar left by those who promised to stay and then left. And Jesus wants to show how even doubt can become a bridge to faith. What are you about to hear? It will completely change the way you face distrust and fear of loving again. He wanted to believe it, but he couldn't. The others said they had seen it, that he was alive, that he had returned. But Thomas was too broken to trust. It wasn't just doubt, it was pain, it was fear. It was the feeling of having been betrayed by hope. After all, how can you trust again when what you believed in most seems to have died before your eyes? Maybe you understand exactly what Thomas felt at that moment. Maybe someone promised to be by your side forever, and they didn't. Maybe you gave your heart and it was crushed with words or absences. And now you live in fear of believing again, to trust, to open up, because the last time you did this, it hurt like hell. Thomas said something that many are ashamed to admit: if I don't see, if I don't touch, I don't believe. And Jesus listened. But the most beautiful thing is not that he listened, it's that he went to Thomas. He didn't rebuke him. He didn't shame him. He went and showed his wounds. John 20:27 records this intimate moment. Put your finger here and see my hands, and reach your hand and put it in my side, and be not unbelieving, but believing. Jesus speaks to you, and sometimes he shows his wounds to heal yours, because what Thomas needed was not a theological proof. He needed a personal touch, and that's what he received. Have you ever felt afraid to believe that something good could happen again? Have you ever been afraid to trust someone, even though you really wanted to trust them? This is not weakness. This is a wounded heart trying to protect itself. But today, Jesus is approaching you, not with judgment, but with marked hands, visible wounds, proofs of love. He does not require blind faith from you. He reveals himself with compassion. He understands what it's like to be hurt, and that is why he is so careful with those who carry scars on their souls. When Jesus showed his wounds to Thomas, he was saying, I too have bled, I too have been broken, and that is why I can heal you. Perhaps your biggest struggle today is not with someone else, but with yourself. Maybe you blame yourself for not being able to trust like you used to. Perhaps you have placed a barrier so high that not even hope can enter it anymore. But Jesus speaks to you, and he's saying, I understand your pain, and I want to restore your faith. He doesn't expect you to fake it. He expects you to allow yourself. May you look at him and say with sincerity, Lord, show me your hands. Show me that I can trust again. And he will show, not just his hands, but also the path back to trust. If this message spoke to you, comment now, Jesus, I want to trust again. This comment can be more than a click. It can be your first step toward restoring your faith, and someone reading this might have the courage to believe it too. Your testimony can be the seed of healing in another wounded heart. Now close your eyes for a moment and take a deep breath. Imagine Jesus approaching you without rushing, without pressure. Imagine him reaching out his hands and saying, touch, see, I'm still the same and I'm still here for you, because this is the Jesus who speaks to you. Not the one who condemns your fragility, but the one who transforms your weakness into a meeting point with grace. Faith is not the absence of doubts. It is the decision to continue even in the midst of them. And when Jesus enters, even doubt becomes a path to healing. And here comes the most impressive part of this journey. There is a pain that hides behind the noise of life, loneliness, that feeling of being surrounded by people, but feeling invisible. And Jesus wants to show that even in the darkest silence, he is there. What's next will reveal a truth that will change the way you face the silence of your pain. Elijah had already faced so much. I had already seen fire from heaven consume the altar before the prophets of Baal. I had already run with courage through the word of the Lord. But now, after the threat of a queen, after the pressure, the wear and tear, the exhaustion, he no longer wanted to continue. He felt completely alone, not because of a lack of faith, but because of excessive tiredness. His soul screamed in silence, and that's why he ran away to the desert, to a cave, to the place where no one could see your tears, where no one demanded it anymore, where he could just disappear. And how many today are not experiencing exactly this? Not physically in a cave, but inside you, a darkness where the soul screams, but no one hears. A silence that hurts more than 1,000 words, a desire to disappear, not because you want to die, but because you no longer know how to live. Elijah, the prophet who once defied kings, now cowers beneath a juniper tree and says, "Enough is enough, Lord." And how many of us haven't said that too? Enough of the pain, enough of the rejection, enough of fighting alone. It is at this moment that the sky bows. May the Lord draw near, but not with thunder, not even with earthquakes, not even with fire. The Bible says in 1 Kings 19:12, and after the fire, a still small voice. Jesus speaks to you, and sometimes he chooses to whisper, because when everything is screaming inside us, the voice we need to hear most is the one that calms us down. God did not approach Elijah with noise. He approached carefully, tenderly, with presence. God's silence is not absence. It's preparation for something more intimate, deeper, more transformative. And that same small voice is coming to you now. The voice that doesn't judge your tiredness, that doesn't require performance, who simply sees you and stays there with you. Have you ever felt that dull pain of being surrounded by people but still feeling invisible? Have you ever laid down and wished the world would stop for a day just so you could breathe? Have you ever felt like no one understands the weight you carry inside? Elijah felt it. And God did not order him to be lifted by force. God fed him. Let him rest. And then, he whispered, because before giving us direction, God gives us back our dignity. Before pushing us towards purpose, he heals us in secret. If you have ever felt like you are in this emotional cave, comment now, Jesus, find me in my silence. Your comment could be the echo someone needs to read to realize they are not alone, that there are others who were also found by that small voice, which were also restored by the invisible but real presence of God. Close your eyes now, just for a moment. Imagine this scenario. A cave, dark, cold, and suddenly, a breeze, light, serena, that surrounds you, that touches your face like a breath of life. This is the presence of Jesus. He hasn't forgotten you. He didn't abandon you. He's closer than you feel, and he whispers, I'm here. And I'm not done with you yet, because when everyone thinks you're finished, God is just starting a new story. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. There is a pain that few admit, that of blaming yourself for loving someone who didn't know how to value you. And what Jesus did to Hosea will turn your idea of love upside down. What you are about to discover will change the way you see everything. The sound of slamming doors echoed in the empty hallways. It was the third time that week that Gomer left home, leaving her husband and children behind. The prophet Hosea, a man of God, faithful and broken, remained standing before the half-open door with teary eyes and a broken heart. He knew where she was going, again, and yet he chose to love her. The scandal in this story wasn't adultery. It wasn't the public dishonor of a man who loved an unfaithful woman. The real scandal was love, a love that insisted, persisted, and resisted. Hosea's love was not human. It was the closest reflection the Bible records of the heart of God. The book of Hosea throws us, without anesthesia, into the center of the pain of someone who loves someone who doesn't know how to love back. And if you've ever felt this pain, you know there is no more lonely anguish. It's that feeling of guilt that invades the silence. The mind repeats, you should have seen it before. It was you who allowed this. You loved it too much. Loving too much became a crime, and yet you would love again, because those who truly love don't turn off a button. There is no off to the feeling. There is only the echo. I wasn't enough for him or her to choose me. You look in the mirror and ask yourself, why did I give myself so much? Am I the problem? Is God tired of me too? If you identified yourself, know that this pain has a name, the wound of self-devaluation. And the love of Jesus wants to address exactly that. In Hosea 3:1, God speaks to Hosea, go again, love a woman beloved of her friend and an adulteress, as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods. God doesn't just send Hosea to get Gomer, he tells her to love her again. This is different from tolerating. It's different than just accepting back. It's love that starts again. This means that Jesus speaks to you today in the same way he spoke to Hosea. I know your pain. I saw how hard you tried. I saw you love when it was easier to give up. And I want to restore the value you lost trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. This story is not about Gomer. It's about you, about all of us who surrendered, who donated, who forgave, and in the end, we were left with the pieces of our own hearts. And the worst part, many of us feel guilty about having loved. But loving is not the problem. The lack of response from the other does not define the value of your love. Because true love is never in vain. When you love with God's love, even though you are rejected, you are being healed. It is being shaped into something greater. The problem was never that you loved too much. The problem is that whoever received your love didn't know what to do with it. And that says a lot about that person, and nothing about their essence. Take a deep breath now. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine Jesus coming to you as he did to Hosea, placing his hand on your shoulder and saying, I know what it is to love without being loved. I went to the cross for people who denied me. I understand you. This revelation breaks chains. Because the pain of loving someone who didn't know how to love you no longer needs to define your value. You don't have to carry this burden. Jesus wants to give you back what this relationship tried to take away. Your identity, your dignity, your ability to love again, with wisdom, with limits, with direction. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe the reason you suffered so much in this relationship was not because you loved wrong, but because you were called to love right, with the love that comes from above, and it was precisely this pure love that bothered the other person the most? Wounded people reject healing, and often his presence was a mirror for the wounds that the other didn't want to face. You weren't too much, you were light, and light bothers where there is darkness. So now, with your eyes open and your heart lighter, listen to this with faith. God doesn't just want to comfort you. He wants to redirect you. He wants to show you that his love is the right measure to cure all the comparisons, insecurities, and faults that this relationship left behind. No, you don't need to stop loving to protect yourself. You just need to learn to love in God, with discernment, with identity, wisely, because true love never destroys, it builds. And the first love you need to rebuild is love for yourself from the perspective of heaven. Can you feel it now? That relief of knowing you're not alone? That God's love does not demand perfection from you, but offers restoration. That he doesn't point his finger saying, I told you so, but opens his arms saying, I still want to love you again. If this message spoke to your heart, comment now. Jesus is my strength. Your comment may be confirmation that someone also needs to read it today. But that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed. The silence inside the house was deafening. The dirt floor still bore the marks of the feet of the children and servants who were no longer there. Job, once the most prosperous man in the East, now found himself surrounded by ashes, pain, and questions. He was sitting on the floor, with pieces of pottery in his hands, scraping the wounds that covered his body, visible wounds, because the invisible ones were even deeper. The losses had been quick, violent, unquestionable. Children, goods, health, all, and the question that crosses generations, that invades broken hearts to this day, echoed in his chest. Why did this happen to me? The book of Job does not present us with a weak man, but a real man. A man who trusted in God, but who also cried, who prayed but also questioned himself. And perhaps this is exactly your pain today, the feeling of being emotionally destroyed, as if what you had left were just ruins. What do you do when everything falls apart and you feel like there is nothing left to rebuild, when the pieces of your soul are scattered on the floor and you don't know where to start? Jesus speaks to you today from the life of Job. Not every end is the end. Job 42:10 tells us, and the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord gave him twice as much as he had before. God didn't just give back what Job had lost, he gave twice as much. But look carefully. Before restitution, brokenness came. Before the answer came silence. Before the double came the void. Because God's reconstruction begins where the world says it all ends. Maybe you are there wondering if there is still a plan, if God still has something in store for you, and the answer is yes. But divine reconstruction does not begin outside. It starts within you, in thoughts that need to be healed, in faith that needs to be rekindled, in the soul that needs to breathe again. You know, sometimes what God wants to restore in us is not the situation, but our identity. Job learned to trust not just who God was, but who he himself was to God. And here comes the most surprising part. It wasn't possessions that brought Job relief. It was the presence of God. It was a profound encounter with the Creator. It was the understanding that even without answers, he could trust. Job declares, "Once I knew you by hearing, but now my eyes see you." This sentence changes everything. Because that's when the deepest pain turns into the most intimate encounter. It is in this place of desolation that many think they are forgotten. But it is exactly where God is preparing the greatest reunion in his history. Do you feel like you lost everything? That there's nothing left of you? Know that God does not work with leftovers. He works with beginnings, and he specializes in starting stories over from scratch. He breathed life into a valley of dry bones, made flowers bloom in the desert, transformed a cross into a resurrection. The same God who restored Job is here now. And he's saying, "Son, daughter, I haven't given up on your story." What seems like an end is just the page before the miracle. Because when you hand over the pieces, God reveals the purpose and what he rebuilds. No one else can destroy. But don't confuse reconstruction with a return to the past. What God has for you is not what you lost. It is something new which has not yet been experienced. The pain you feel is not proof that you are too broken to continue. It's proof that something precious inside you is still alive. And God honors hearts that even in ruins continue to beat for him. If this message spoke to your heart, comment, "Jesus restores me completely." Your comment may be exactly what someone needs to see to not give up on their life today. But that's not all. What you're about to discover will change the way you see everything. The crowd gathered in the streets of Capernaum. There were voices, pushes, dust kicked up by hurried feet. Everyone wanted to get closer to him, but in the midst of that chaos, there was a woman. She didn't scream, she didn't push anyone, she didn't ask for passage. His strength was almost gone. His body had been bleeding for 12 years, 12 years of pain, 12 years of shame, 12 years of being rejected by society, called impure, away from temples, hugs, looks. And it wasn't just her body that was bleeding, it was the heart. The soul. That woman wasn't just sick. She was emotionally exhausted. He felt invisible, defeated, and the worst, hopeless. How many times have you felt this way, fighting on the inside, smiling on the outside, trying to keep up appearances while something inside you falls apart, waiting for a cure? But not just for the body, a cure for emptiness, rejection, the wound that no one sees. The blood flow woman was not after fame or recognition. She just wanted to play. Just play. A thread from the edge. Because at that moment all she had was faith, and faith, when it's all we have, is more than enough to move heaven. She approached from behind, because for those who have already been rejected too much, even the gesture of showing themselves can seem like a risk. She extended her hand, a quick tap, almost imperceptible, but there, in that touch, all the pain, all the faith, all the surrender was condensed. And then something happened. Something that defied all natural laws. The blood flow stopped. The bleeding stopped. But that was not all that Jesus healed. He stopped, looked, searched. "Who touched me?" he asked. The disciples thought it was strange, but Jesus knew. I knew that touch was unusual. It was a touch of faith, a touch from someone who no longer had anything but hope in him. And then Jesus saw her. He called her his daughter, publicly. He didn't heal her in secret. He restored her identity in front of everyone. "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be free from your evil." Mark 5:34. That woman didn't just receive physical healing. He received recognition, dignity, belonging. Jesus speaks to you through this story. When everything in you seems to be failing, when the pain no longer gives you respite and the world seems to have forgotten you, no, He sees you. He knows how hard you try to get out of bed, of your silent cry in the middle of the night, that whispered prayer that seemed like it didn't even have the strength to leave your lips. He knows, and more than knowing, He answers. Because Jesus does not ignore anyone who touches Him with faith. He stops everything, changes routes, breaks protocols, all because of a heart that insists on believing even while bleeding. Maybe you've been waiting for this cure for years. Maybe you've already tried everything. He's been everywhere, listened to all the advice, sought help wherever He could, but the void remains. Today, the Holy Spirit tells you, touch Jesus with faith, truly, even without words, even if it's the last effort, because there is a power that flows from Him when we approach with faith. And here's a revelation that can transform the way you see everything. The greatest healing that Jesus wants to work on you may not be external. It is the cure for abandonment, of invisibility, of shame. He wants to call you His daughter, of son publicly. He wants to restore His identity even before restoring His condition, because His love is not conditioned on what you have or what you have lost. He loves you in the midst of pain. He chooses you even when the world rejects you. And this touch of faith, even small, is enough to generate an eternal miracle. If this word strengthened you, write in the comments, "I touched Jesus." Maybe your statement will be the motivation someone else needs to rise up and seek healing as well. Don't underestimate the power of your testimony. He can rekindle someone's faith. But that's not all. There is a secret hidden in another story, and few know this truth. That night, the sky seemed heavier than ever. There was no thunder, there was no storm, but the silence screamed. Jesus was in Gethsemane, the place where the greatest battles are not fought with swords, but with the soul exposed. It was the beginning of the deepest pain ever recorded. But at that moment, what overflowed was not blood, it was anguish. He kneels. Sweat mixes with tears, and the heart, even a holy one, tightens with the pain that only those who truly love can feel, the pain of loneliness. The pain of knowing that, even surrounded by friends, none of them understood the weight He carried. 3 times He went away to pray, and 3 times the disciples slept. At the time He needed it most, He was left alone. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever been surrounded by people but felt like you were invisible? Have you ever desperately wished that someone would notice your pain, but no one did? Jesus felt this pain. He knows what it's like to beg for company in a dark time and receive silence in response. Gethsemane was not just a place of prayer, it was the place where Jesus felt what you feel. There, He identified with your tears, with your anxiety, with the feeling of carrying a weight that no one understands. And that's why Hebrews 4:15 reminds us, "For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin." Gethsemane is not a distant story, it is a mirror. This is where Christ's humanity aligns with ours. He is not far from your pain. He knew it first. And the most shocking thing, even crushed inside, He chose to move forward. He chose to keep loving even when He knew He would be abandoned. He chose to die for those who slept in their anguish. And that changes everything. It reveals that even when you feel despised, forgotten, neglected, there is a love that does not give up on you. A love that doesn't sleep while you suffer. A love that understands what others ignore. Maybe the Gethsemane of your life is silent. Maybe you are fighting in silence while the world moves along at its pace. But Jesus speaks to you right now. He says, "I've been there. I know that darkness, and I'm with you." He doesn't just watch you, He sustains you. Because those who went through Gethsemane know how to hold the hand of those who are there now. And He holds yours strong. with love, with authority, with compassion. There is something powerful about knowing that the Savior of the world knows the pain you feel, not from hearing about it, but from having lived it. And this completely changes the way you can approach your journey. You are no longer alone, never was. On that dark night, where even hope seemed to doze off, Jesus remained standing for you. He fought for you. I sweat blood for you, so that today, this very moment, you would know, I understand. If this message touched your soul, comment, Jesus understands me. Your comment could be the echo that another soul needs to discover that they are not alone. Someone right now may be going through Gethsemane themselves, and your courage to open up may be the answer they need. But that's not all, because what happens next will reveal a divine choice made in secret, a choice that could completely change the way you view love and rejection. Raquel was beautiful, so beautiful that her name was whispered like music in the fields of Haran. Leah, her older sister, did not have the same shine in the eyes of others. While Raquel received charming looks, Leah was seen as the one who came first, but was not chosen. When Jacob arrived and saw Rachel, his heart immediately fell in love. He would work 7 years, and then another 7, to have her as his wife. But the night of the wedding brought a cruel twist. It was Leah who was given to him first, a gesture of deceit that would seal the emotional fate of a woman who would never be anyone's first love. She was delivered but not wanted, married but not loved, present but invisible. Leah carried in her body the weight of an imposed alliance, and in her heart the most acute pain one can feel, that of being exchanged, not for someone better, but for someone more loved. She was the second option in a marriage in which she was the first wife, a woman who gave her all, her body, her life, her children, and still couldn't win the heart of the one she wanted most. With each birth, a hope. Now my husband will love me, Reuben, Simeon, Levi. But love didn't come. Jacob's gaze continued to look at Rachel. Leah's heart every day broke a little more. Now stop and think. How many times have you felt like Leah? Have you ever been in a relationship where, even though you gave everything, you felt only tolerated and not wanted? Ever felt like you were trying to prove yourself to someone who just didn't see who you really were? Leah represents thousands of tired hearts who love in silence, wait to be seen, and end up forgotten amid life's unfair comparisons. But the text of Genesis 29:31 brings a detail that changes everything. When the Lord saw that Leah was despised, he gave her children. God saw. God did not ignore her pain. When no one else saw his value, heaven was already conspiring in his favor, and the most powerful. It is from Leah, and not from Rachel, that the lineage of the Messiah comes. Yes, it is through Judah, son of Leah, that Jesus is born. She who was despised by men was chosen by God to carry in her womb the promise of salvation. And this tells us something extraordinary. The world may not choose you, but heaven has already chosen you. Looks may pass by you, but Jesus does not pass by. He stops. He looks into your soul and says, I see you. When everything seems to scream that you are not enough, he whispers, you are my beloved daughter. I desired you before the foundation of the world. If this word touched your heart, comment, Jesus chose me. Because declaring this can be the beginning of a profound restoration, not just for you, but for those who most need to hear this truth right now. Your comment can heal someone who has also been changed, rejected, or forgotten. But that's not all, because there's a story where looking back can cost you everything. And what happens next will challenge the way you see the past. In the darkness of dawn, while the sky was still burning with the last traces of destruction, a figure froze in the middle of the path. The city of Sodom had been consumed by divine judgment. Screams, smoke, chaos. Lot and his family ran, guided by angels not to look back. But something in his wife resisted. An invisible attachment to everything she was leaving. Home, memories, maybe even unresolved guilt. She turns her face away. One look, and everything breaks. There, in the instant of hesitation, your body turns into a pillar of salt. A petrified memory that, looking back with your heart still trapped, can prevent you from living what God has prepared for you. Luke 17:32 carries a reminder that echoes like a whisper of warning. Remember Lot's wife. How many times have you found yourself trying to move forward, but your heart still drags the rubble of what was left behind? A relationship that ended but that still traps you in memories. A past mistake that continues to define you even after forgiveness. Lot's wife did not die for disobeying a simple order. She died because she couldn't let go. Because you haven't accepted that to live God's new life, you have to let go of the old one that hurt you. This pain of living trapped in the past is a prison that no one sees. On the outside, you smile. But inside, every memory sinks you. The scenes come back like a movie. What was said, what wasn't said, what you could have done differently. And without realizing it, your present becomes hostage to what no longer exists. What many don't understand is that moving forward is not forgetting. It's choosing day after day not to be controlled by what has already happened. Jesus speaks to you when he says, "Son, daughter, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The way is only ahead. The truth is what I say, not what your pain says, and the life is where I am, and I do not dwell in your past." Jesus is ready to restore your history, but you need to stop visiting the tomb of your memories. There is no life where there is only longing and regret. Jesus wants to clear away the rubble, clean up the dust, and show you that what is to come is infinitely greater than what you have lost. Lot's wife had a choice, and so do you. Every time you look back with a heart full of longing for what hurt you, you freeze your progress. But when you choose to look to Christ, you choose life. Choose healing, choose fresh start. If this message spoke to your soul, comment, "I choose to look forward." Your comment could be the first step for someone who is currently stuck on the road of life. May this prophetic statement inspire others to let go of the weight they carry. And here comes the most amazing part of this story, because there is a pain that destroys not just hope, but the very ability to love. And what happens next will touch places in your heart that you may have forgotten how to heal. In the silence of that dinner, where every look carried weight, Jesus gets up, takes off his cloak, takes a towel, and begins to wash the disciples' feet. One by one, with gentle gestures, he wipes away the dust from the journey of men who had no idea what was coming that night. But there is something there that the text implies, and that is what makes this scene even more disturbing and powerful. Between those dirty feet, between those eyes that looked at him in silence, were the feet and eyes of Judas, the traitor. Jesus knew. He knew that this man, to whom he had given access, intimacy, and love, was about to give it away. And yet, he loved it until the end. John 13:1 says, "Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end." This verse is like a sword that cuts our hearts in two, because loving those who love us is easy. Loving those who respect us, those who reciprocate, those who care, this is natural. But loving someone who cheats, who hurts, who plans to destroy you while smiling at you, that's just Jesus. And it is this love that confronts us today. Maybe you stopped loving. Maybe you'll say it's not worth it anymore, that loving only brought you pain, disappointment, loss. Perhaps your soul is crying out, "I gave everything and received contempt. I was faithful and I was changed." And I'm not here to minimize your pain. That's not what Jesus does, but he shows you a way. True love does not depend on the other's response. Because loving with Jesus is not about whether the other deserves it. It's about you healing yourself. You free yourself. You find yourself again with your essence, which is not revenge, which is not bitterness. It's compassion, it's grace, it's mercy. Jesus speaks to you when he invites you to love even with a wounded heart. He is not asking you to accept abuse, nor to return to places of destruction, but he invites you not to let the evil they did to you become the evil you carry. Love is a decision, and when this decision is made with the help of the Holy Spirit, it has the power to uproot the roots of bitterness that sicken the soul. Do you know what no one tells you? That often when you say you don't want to love anymore, what you're saying deep down is that you don't want to suffer anymore. And that is human, but this is also where the love of Jesus comes in. Because he doesn't teach you to love to be destroyed. He teaches you to love to be rebuilt. Love with Jesus is a declaration that your heart does not belong to those who broke it, but to the one who created it. If this word spoke to you, comment, "Jesus, teach me to love again." Your comment can touch hearts that today are hardened by pain and show that there is still life even after loss. There is still healing even after betrayal, but that's not all. Something even more powerful is about to be revealed, because there is a type of pain that doesn't just paralyze the now. It turns off the light of tomorrow, and what comes next will restore your hope. Two men walked with their heads down along a dusty road that led to Emmaus. His steps were slow, his eyes were empty, and his heart was broken. They had heard promises. They had expected miracles. They had believed that this man, Jesus, was the hope of Israel. But now, it was all over. The cross had sealed an end that their hearts did not know how to process. The tone of their voices was one of defeat, the words whispers of pain. They could not see tomorrow because the tragedy of yesterday had obscured everything. But then, a third traveler approaches. Disguised by the ordinary, he enters the conversation, listens to their pain, walks alongside, explains the scriptures. And even though they didn't recognize him, there was something different about the man. It was as if, with each word, the almost extinguished ember of faith rekindled in their chests. When they finally recognize him, when they break the bread, he disappears. And they exclaim, "Did not our heart burn within us when he spoke to us along the way?" Luke 24:32. This moment reveals something profound to us. Jesus can walk beside you and you still not recognize him. Because when your heart is broken, even the most real presence can seem distant. Pain blinds us, frustration steals our perception. But the fact that you don't see Jesus doesn't mean he's not there. Maybe you are exactly like this today. Walking down a road called giving up, thinking that God's plans failed, that faith was in vain, that what you believed, dreamed, hoped for, is now nothing but rubble. Maybe all you wanted most was someone to just walk with you, to listen to your pain without rushing, to say, "I understand," and that is why Jesus speaks to you today. Because he still does. He still enters the quietest roads of the soul. He still walks alongside those who think everything is over, and the most surprising thing is that he doesn't condemn you for doubting. He does not reject you because you have lost hope. On the contrary, it is precisely there that he reveals himself in the most intimate way. Just when you think all is lost, he lights a flame. And suddenly, without you realizing it, something inside you starts to burn again. Isn't it curious how these disciples only recognized him after he broke the bread? This teaches us something precious. Jesus often reveals himself when we leave, when life breaks us, when everything falls apart, when the heart breaks. That's when he shows himself as the bread of life. It is in the breaking that the revelation happens. If this message touched your heart, comment now. "My heart can still burn." That's not just a sentence. It is a declaration of faith in the midst of discouragement, a cry of spiritual resistance, an affirmation that even in ruins, you can still experience the living presence of Jesus. And here comes the most impressive part of this story. What you thought was the end was just the beginning of a revelation. And what comes next will show you that broken promises are not the end of God's love. Anna didn't just cry because she didn't have children. He cried because he carried in his chest an unfulfilled promise that hurt his soul every day. What she wanted most seemed to have been granted to everyone, except her. And what hurt most was that, even being God-fearing, even serving, even praying, even waiting, the answer didn't come. And when God's answers take time, Silence can scream inside us. Each new cycle of dashed hope is like a blade that cuts deeper. It's the kind of pain that makes you look up to the sky and ask, "Lord, what's missing? Why not me?" Ina went to the temple, but she wasn't happy. It was broken. And yet, even though she was crushed, she poured out before God everything that was inside her. No masks, no rehearsed speeches, just a naked heart torn and desperate for an answer. While others laughed, she cried. While others celebrated her achievements, she had to smile on the outside and scream on the inside. And the worst part, she was even judged by the priest, as if your pain was exaggerated, as if your faith was wrong. But the whole sky moves when someone prays with a broken heart. And then, after years of waiting, Anna conceives. The Bible says, Hannah conceived and gave birth to Samuel, 1 Samuel 1:20. Samuel was not just a son. He was living proof that God's timing never fails, that promises are not discarded because of time. They are mature, and maybe that's exactly your pain today. Maybe you are also experiencing this silent wait for something that burns in your heart but never seems to arrive. A healed relationship. A fresh start that doesn't come. An answer that doesn't appear. You wonder if you have been forgotten, if you prayed wrong, if heaven has gone deaf. But Jesus speaks to you now. You have not been forgotten. Waiting is not punishment, it's preparation. The heart broken by unfulfilled promises is one of the cruelest pains, because it is a pain with a name, with a missed deadline, with frustrated expectations. But there's something powerful about it. When the promise is fulfilled, it heals layers of pain you never knew existed. Hannah handed Samuel over to the Lord. She knew that this child was not just hers, it was from God. It was purpose. If this word reached you, comment now. I continue to wait on God. Your wait has a name, it has value, it has a purpose. Time may try to extinguish the shine of faith, but Jesus rekindles every flame that seems to have gone out. What's to come will still make sense of all the pain you felt. And the strongest is yet to come, because there are promises that are not being denied. They are being polished by God Himself. Abraham was faced with the unknown. God calls him in few words and without many details. Leave your country, your relatives, and your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. Genesis 12:1. Going. Where? When? As. The call was clear, but the path shrouded in uncertainty. And this is where the greatest emotional tension for many people today lies. Fear of the emotional future. The fear of taking a step, loving again, trusting again, starting over without guarantees, because the past left its marks, and the present seems too unstable to place hope in something that cannot yet be seen. How many times have you wanted to move forward, but something inside you said, what if it goes wrong again? Insecurity about what lies ahead paralyzes, suffocates, traps you in a cycle of analysis, fear, and giving up. It is an internal conflict between faith and self-protection. And Jesus speaks to you precisely at this point. What you want most may be hidden in the direction that scares you most. The future you ask for is beyond the comfort zone you refuse to leave. But just like Abraham, your story of healing, restoration, and true love begins with one step, a step towards the promise, even without having all the answers. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you the end you desire. This promise is not poetry. It is a guarantee. God knows where He is taking you, even when you don't see the path. His love is not a risk. It is the security that your heart so desperately needs. The anxiety of tomorrow is only alleviated when you place trust in those who are already there. And your tomorrow has already been visited by God. Abraham left everything, people, places, roots, but he didn't walk alone. And the most beautiful, he didn't even know the destination, but he knew who he was trusting. True faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to follow, even with fear present. And perhaps that is exactly what Jesus wants from you now. Not perfect faith, but surrendered faith that says, Lord, I do not see, but I will. I do not understand, but I trust. If this word spoke to your heart, write in the comments, Jesus, I trust in your plans. Your declaration of trust today could be the beginning of a new era. Don't let uncertainty about the future steal the promises that are already being lined up by God. Sometimes what hurts most is not what happened, but the fear of not being able to start over. And it is precisely at this point that Jesus places his hand on your shoulder and says, walk with me, one step at a time. I am the way. And what comes now is even more transformative because there is a type of tears that carry a silent cry. And God also responds through them. Jesus is before Mary. Lazarus's body lies in the tomb. The atmosphere is one of mourning, of farewell, of paralyzing pain. And at that moment, upon seeing Mary crying, upon feeling the weight of the environment, the Son of God, the one who knows everything, can do everything, and already knew what he was about to do, cries. John 11:35 records the shortest and most powerful phrase in the Gospel. Jesus wept. Not because Lazarus was dead, because he knew the miracle was on the way. Jesus wept because Mary wept. Because he saw her pain, he felt his sadness. And he wanted to say with tears what no human words could explain, I am here with you. There are pains that overflow into silent tears. Tears hidden in the pillow, tears that flow in the bathroom, while the world outside demands you to be strong. And maybe you are living exactly that moment right now, when no one else notices, but inside you something is broken, tired, desperate. People may not understand, but Jesus, he sees, he feels, he cries with you. This is not divine weakness. This is love in its purest form. Jesus cries not because he lost control, but because he cares. And today, Jesus speaks to you. Your tears are not ignored by heaven. The world says, swallow your tears. Religion often requires you to hide pain, but the gospel of Christ is different. He invites you to cry with him, because in the presence of Jesus, even tears have purpose. Even pain becomes a bridge to miracles. John 11:35 is the answer for those who think God is too far away to care. It's the answer to that broken heart that wonders, does anyone see my suffering? Yes, Jesus sees. He feels, he responds with presence before responding with solution. And that changes everything. You don't have to be strong to be heard. You don't have to be smiling to be loved. The tears you shed in secret are being collected by a God who doesn't just listen. He shares your pain. In every tear, there is a prayer that the heart could not form into words. And Jesus understands each of them. He's not in a hurry to silence the crying because he knows certain healings are born after the soul is washed by tears. Jesus is not offended by your weakness. On the contrary, he welcomes it. If this message touched your heart, comment now, Jesus, welcome my tears. This simple act can open a new journey of healing, faith, and comfort for you. And, who knows, for someone who reads your comment too. Don't underestimate the power of sharing your pain with the one who can transform it, because in heaven, no tears are wasted. And here on earth, no tear spent with Jesus is in vain. Just when you think you're sinking, he's sinking with you. When you think no one will come, he has already arrived. When you think the end is near, Jesus is starting something new. And it is in this place of tears that an even deeper revelation is born. Because there is a pain that not only disconnects you from the world, it makes you think that even God has moved away. But has he really left you? What comes now may change the way you see God's presence in your pain. The tomb was still closed. The air was heavy with pain, with mourning, with frustrated expectations. Martha and Maria were devastated. They had done everything right. They had sent word to Jesus. They believed in his power. They trusted in the promise. And yet Lazarus died. Even so, Jesus did not arrive in time. This is one of the cruelest pains anyone can feel, believing with all your heart and still seeing everything fall apart. Martha goes to meet Jesus with her heart in pieces, and in the midst of crying and pain, she releases the phrase that echoes in thousands of wounded hearts to this day. Lord, if you were here, my brother would not have died. How many times have we said the same thing with words or with the silence of our soul? Jesus, if you had been there, I wouldn't have been left. If the Lord had been with me, my marriage would not have ended. If the Lord would really listen to me, I wouldn't be so broken inside. But what follows in Jesus' response is not a rational justification. It is not a reprimanding sermon. It is a revelation that has the power to break through any emotional darkness. I am the resurrection and the life. John 11:25. It wasn't just about what he could do. It was about who he was. And it still is. He is. He continues to be. Even when everything seems to have died, he remains life itself. Martha's pain was deep, but it was not foreign to Jesus. What Martha still couldn't understand, and many of us couldn't either, is that God's apparent delay is never empty. Jesus could have healed Lazarus from a distance, but he chose to wait. Not to punish, not to test, but to reveal, because there are pains that are not interruptions of the miracle. They are his stage. Martha's mourning became the scene of the greatest resurrection before his own. And it is exactly in this pain that you feel today, in this feeling of being spiritually disconnected because of disappointment, that Jesus wants to reveal himself not only as the answer, but as the resurrection and life itself. The truth is that intense emotional pain can generate profound spiritual disconnection. It may seem like praying doesn't make sense, that faith has dried up, that the sky was silent, but Jesus speaks to you even when everything seems silent. His silence is not absence, it's preparation. Because when everything seems to have died, he arrives, he approaches. And when he arrives, there is no emotional death, soul wound, or past trauma that can resist his living presence. He is not calling you to understand. It is calling you to believe, to trust again, even in the midst of pain. If this message spoke to your heart, write in the comments, Jesus, reveal your life in me. Let it be more than a comment. Let it be an outcry, an act of faith in the middle of the desert. Because sometimes the greatest spiritual connection happens in the darkest place of the soul, and it is in this place, where it seems that everything has been lost, that he wants to show that nothing is beyond his reach, not even your broken heart. And here comes the most impressive part of this story. What happens when you decide to trust even without feeling it? When does faith rise from the ashes of your grief? It is at that very moment that something powerful begins to move. And what you're about to discover will change the way you see everything. The storm was not from the sea, it was of the soul. Jonas knew. You knew you were running away. He knew that the call was real, that the voice that sent it was not an invention. But he didn't want to go. The weight of what God was asking seemed greater than his willingness to obey. Then he ran away. He hid. And in the belly of a great fish, enveloped in darkness, loneliness, and regret, Jonah says a prayer that spans the centuries and reaches the ears of those who today also want to disappear from the presence of God. In my distress I cried out to the Lord, and he answered me. Jonah 2:2. This changes everything, because Jonah's pain wasn't just from fear. It was a spiritual, emotional, existential pain. It was the pain of someone who thinks they will never be able to trust God again. Maybe you are in that place right now, not physically inside a fish, but emotionally swallowed by feelings that took you away from your faith. It could have been a loss, a betrayal, a prayer that wasn't answered as you hoped, and you started to shut up, stopping searching, stopping praying like before, distrusting God's plan. And then, without realizing it, he created distance. But here's the most important detail in this whole story. Jonah was only restored when he prayed from the depths, not from the bottom of the sea, but from the bottom of my soul. God doesn't expect you to come back with full strength just to come back with truth. And the truth is that you still feel him, even though you try to escape, because Jesus speaks to you even when you run from him. Restoration does not begin when everything is in order. It starts when you admit you are lost. Jonas found himself there, surrounded by the seaweed of guilt, the darkness of fear, and the currents of doubt. And it was from this place that he remembered the Lord, not with nice words, but with a broken heart. And God heard, God responded. God brought it back. His mercy does not depend on how much you deserve. It just depends on how much you allow it to reach you. And believe me, it's knocking on your heart's door right now. You don't need to understand everything. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to take the first step back. Even without strength, even without certainty, even shaking, because Jesus is on that path. And he's not sitting around waiting for you to explain yourself. He has open arms waiting to restore, to heal, to rebuild your faith, even with the pieces that were left. Jonas cried out in anguish, and God responded. He still responds. It still restores. He still cares, and he is closer now than you think. If this word spoke to you, write in the comments, "Jesus, restore my confidence." Your comment could be the encouragement someone needs today. And if this message touched your heart, click the like button so that others can also be blessed. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving words that strengthen your faith. You are not alone. There is a way back, and this path begins where your resistance ends and your surrender is born. He tried out the words, but none of them seemed enough. His steps were heavy, his clothes were covered in dust, and his heart was crushed with guilt. The prodigal son no longer carried the arrogance of someone who left, but the regret of someone who knew he didn't deserve to return. It was a mixture of shame and longing. I miss a home, a plentiful table, a peace that only exists where there is true love. He didn't want any more demands. He just wanted a place in the shadow of what was left of his father's kindness. But what he found was something he could never have imagined. When he was still far away, before he even had any chance to explain himself, his father saw him, recognized him, and ran. Yes, it ran, not to confront him, but to hug him, to kiss him, to restore it. Luke 15:20 says, "And he arose and went to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him." This is the kind of love that deconstructs all defenses, that disarms all guilt, who heals the broken heart not with explanations, but with presence. Maybe you lived a long time believing that love wasn't for you, that, because of what you did or what they failed to do for you, God would have placed you on the sidelines. Perhaps you were taught that the Father's love had a limit and that you had already surpassed it. But Jesus speaks to you now. No matter how far you have gone, the Father is still waiting for you. Not with judgments, but with open arms. His love did not withdraw when you left. He just positioned himself on the road, watching you from afar, waiting for your return. Have you ever felt out of place, even in prayer? Have you ever felt like you don't even deserve to talk to God? Why is he tired of your relapses? That you have already abused mercy too much? So listen with an open heart. God's love does not have a finish line where you lose the right to be loved. He doesn't love you for your performance, but for your existence. And when you decide to return, even covered in mistakes and pain, he runs, he hugs, he celebrates. The prodigal son did not have time to finish his apology. His father interrupted him with honor, with new clothes, with sandals on her feet, with a ring on her finger. Every gesture screamed, "You never stop being my son." Jesus wants you to know that your identity has never been erased, that you are loved, chosen, that the table remains set, that the place that belongs to you in the Father's heart is still there, untouched. There is no past that can cancel this love. There is no trauma that stops him from achieving you today. If this message spoke to your heart, comment now, "Jesus, I return to you." Your comment could be the helping hand another lost child needs to find their way back. And if this word touched you deeply, click the like button so that others can also be blessed. Subscribe to the channel and join this journey of restoration and faith. Love is for you, it always was. And now he's running towards you. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is crying out for more. Maybe it's the scars you tried to ignore, the silence that screamed in the early hours of the morning, or the memory of someone who left a hole that no one else could fill. But along this journey, something changed. Something began to move within his spirit. Why, Jesus speaks to you, and this message was not by chance. God chose exactly this moment in your life to remind you of something essential. You are not alone. You never have been, and you never will be. Every pain you faced, every tear that fell without witnesses, every night you thought about giving up, all of it didn't go unnoticed. Heaven watched. The Father saw, and he didn't just see it, he felt it, and he decided to act. The love of Jesus is not a distant theory, it is a present reality. He doesn't ask you for perfection, just sincerity. He doesn't demand explanations, just that you come back. And the most beautiful thing is that he doesn't wait at the door with arms crossed. He runs towards you. He meets you in the middle of the road of your pain. And there, right there, he begins the restoration. Today, you had your date. Today, you were touched by something that goes beyond reason. Something that started with pain, but ended with hope. The truth is that there is a God who runs for you, who cries with you, that awaits you, and who never gives up on you. Now close your eyes. Take a deep breath. It doesn't matter where you are or what's around you. Allow yourself to live in this moment, because now is the time to pray. And not just any prayer, but a prayer that will seal everything that has been released into your life. Lord Jesus, I thank you for speaking to me so deeply in this video. I recognize my pain, my failures, my loneliness. I recognize that many times I ran away from you. I hid behind my guilt, my shame, the feeling that love was no longer for me. But now I'm back. I come back with my broken heart, yes, but also with faith. I give you everything, my pains, my losses, my insecurities. I surrender my past, my present, and my future. Heals what no one sees, restores what no one understands, enter where no one can reach. Hug me, Lord. Cover me with your grace. I accept your love. I receive your restoration. I return to you. And I know that your embrace will make me new. In the name of Jesus, amen. If you prayed this prayer with me, write in the comments, I made it to the end. Your testimony can be the breath of hope that another life needs. And don't leave now. The video on screen is the continuation of this journey. What you will discover in it may be what you are missing for your complete liberation. Something even deeper, more healing, more transformative. Click and continue, because God still has a lot to reveal to you. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who also needs to be reached by this love. Be an instrument of healing in someone's life today. And subscribe to the channel. When you do this, you don't just keep up with new videos. You become part of a family, a community of faith, of healing, of truth. And every time a video reaches you, you help others to be reached too. It's his way of returning the love he received. And for those of you who stayed this far, keep this as a promise. And the God of all grace will perfect you, establish you, strengthen you, and establish you. 1 Pedro 5:10. You are not alone. You will never be the same again. Jesus spoke to you, and he keeps talking in the video that's on your screen now. Something even more powerful awaits you. Go, watch, because heaven is still writing the next page of your story.